Jesse Minter was asked about a wild Lamar Jackson claim, and he clapped back.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome in to the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by KALSHI. For a limited time, download the KALSHI app and use code Locked On to get up to $500 in bonus bets when you trade $25. On today's show, Kyle Youmans, the new voice of the Baltimore Ravens, will be joining us in the second and third parts of the show to talk about training camp, wide receivers stepping up like Zay Flowers and Jacoby Lane, and his overall thoughts. But in the first part of the show, Jesse Minter was on with Kay Adams on the Up and Adams show, and Kay Adams specifically asked him about the Ian Rapoport, claim that he made about the whole lack of engagement for Lamar Jackson or trouble engaging him, getting him engaged and all that. And Jesse Minter clapped back on the Lamar Jackson hate in his answer. So we're going to get into that here right now, where, look, there's been so many wild things said about Lamar Jackson. And, Kay Adams wanted to know, because for those that didn't hear what Ian Rapoport had to say a couple of days ago, just for the reference here before we get into it, Ian Rapoport said, quote, "Lamar's super talented. It's also a challenge reaching him, getting him engaged. It's something that Todd Monken did exceptionally well, but for a lot of coaches, it can be an uphill battle. It certainly seems like Declan Doyle's climbed that mountain, has gotten an engaged Lamar Jackson. If he's even just at the level that he was when Monken first took over, just fully engaged like that, then this very, very talented Baltimore Ravens team can get the best of him, and the best of Lamar means this team is going to go a long, long way." So kind of came out of nowhere, kind of weird, in my opinion, kind of how that all came up. So Kay Adams asked Jesse Minter about the whole engaged situation. That obviously, Ian Rapoport said that. That's what she was. This had to be what she was referring to, right? So Kay Adams asked Jesse Minter, quote, "When you see anything that says there's trouble with him engaging or getting him engaged, what do you think of that?" That's what essentially Kay Adams asked Jesse Minter. And Jesse Minter said, quote, "I don't really buy into anything that's said about Lamar. I think when you come in, I was here when he was drafted. He was a great player then. He was a great teammate. He was really engaging. Since I've walked in the door, I'm not listening to, oh, this happened or whatever. It's a clean slate. He's been an unbelievable leader. He was at almost every offseason day. He's been making guys repeat drills. He's just developing as a real leader. He's taking ownership of the team." And he continued on and said it's relationships. So it's knowing what's going on in his life, knowing what's going on the field, off the field, giving him a platform to really be a leader, giving him the opportunity to take the team by the reins, injecting some different ideas and philosophies to help him continue to become the best version of himself. And he's taken it and run with it. It drives me insane, some of the stuff that people say about this guy. He's unbelievable. There's nobody we'd rather have as the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm sure that last part was in relation to all Lamar Jackson hate. Kay asked about the engaged conversation, but, at the same time, there is this just continued narrative of Lamar. And again, we don't have to get into all of that right now. We've talked about it a bunch, and it just kind of be repeating the same stuff over and over again. But it is really cool to see Jesse Minter go to bat for Lamar Jackson like this, right? And Ian Rapoport got a lot of flack for, what he said about Lamar and his claim about Lamar Jackson. And, I'm glad Kay asked the question, right? Because I kind of just thought that Ian Rapoport would say that, and kind of just people would be, oh, Ian Rapoport said that Lamar Jackson, there's trouble getting Lamar Jackson engaged, and, there's trouble, with Lamar and buying in and all this different stuff and, reaching him. But in reality, who said that? Who's to say? Where's Ian Rapoport getting that information? That was the basis of our conversation a couple days ago on the conversation. And Jesse Minter's coming in and giving you cold, hard facts about what's going on with Lamar Jackson, his expectations, what Lamar has done. And again, it was kind of the mic drop moment of the answer was it drives me insane, some of the stuff that people say about this guy. but it is the public support aspect of things. And, I expect nothing less from Jesse Minter, right? But, this is the way I wanted the answer to go, right? He didn't completely slam everything into the ground and go scorched earth or anything along those lines. He's just like, look, this is who Lamar Jackson is. This is who he's always been. It's not and he made that point clear too, right? Where Jesse Minter, and this was kind of subtle, at least I picked up on it, or at least I like to think I did. Who knows if this is actually what he meant? But in saying the part about when he was drafted, Jesse Minter was there. He was a great player then, great teammate, really engaging. And since he's walked in the door, all this other stuff has happened. And he's been an unbelievable leader. What Jesse Minter's trying to say there is look, this has always been Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's always been engaging. Lamar Jackson's always been a great teammate, right? So he's trying to dispel, I believe, what I think Jesse Minter's doing there is trying to dispel some of the narratives about, oh, well, Lamar in the past was this. No, I mean, Jesse Minter's saying this is who Lamar's been. And he's taking ownership of the team and making guys repeat drills. The leadership aspect for him, we know has grown over the last handful of seasons. And we know that Lamar Jackson is somebody that is a competitor. He wants to win. So, yeah, about all this stuff about, oh, people are saying there's trouble engaging or getting them engaged and all that type of stuff. Again, I don't know where that came from. I mean, this narrative is, I guess it's technically not the first time that someone's tried to say something like that about Lamar. I'm not sure whether Ian Rapoport was just repeating information that he had heard somewhere, felt very much who could be feeding in that information if that is the case. I don't think Ian Rapoport was saying that as his personal opinion. At least I didn't get that. I think that he was repeating information, but, you have to say this is what I was told. He's not going to reveal who said it, obviously, but it's just yeah, where'd you get that information? What was going on here? Kind of came out of nowhere. And I thought Jesse Minter's answer was very good. And I'm happy that he got the chance to respond to the question about, not just this particular instance, which again, Kay Adams asking about the engaging thing. Well, that's what Ian Rapoport said, but really to all Lamar Jackson hate. So cool from Jesse Minter there for sure. Coming up though in the second part of the show, we'll dive into our conversation with Kyle Youmans talking about Ravens training camp and a lot more. So stay tuned when it coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by KALSHI. Before season even kicks off, everyone's making predictions. Who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On KALSHI, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. And let's ask the question, will the Ravens win the AFC Championship this season? Well, Ravens are currently trading at 12%, meaning a $100 trade would pay out $725.02 if they take home the title. On KALSHI, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position, trade the draft, pick the game in, more on KALSHI. Download the KALSHI app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. KALSHI, KALSHI, trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. KALSHI products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Moving along, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Thursday Locked On Ravens edition of the show. Thanks so much for being here and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. We have it covered here with that 5-day-a-week plus more daily Ravens coverage twice per day, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern time. Plus, we have bonus episodes, instant reactions, watch-alongs, the squad show, and so much more here for you on Locked On Ravens. Now we're going to dive into our interview with Kyle Youmans, our conversation with Kyle Youmans, who is the new voice of the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to talk training camp and a lot more here, so let's get into it now. Kyle, first of all, for those that don't know, Kyle was on with us on the Locked On Ravens squad show a couple of weeks ago. Training camp's now fully underway. Kyle, you've gotten some practices under your belt. Hopefully everything is kind of settled down. You were doing a whole Ravens media tour, which, was awesome to hear your story. You got it shared everywhere. How's it been over these last couple of weeks for you? Is things hopefully have settled down for you? But also, they pick right back up with training camp starting.
Yeah, no time to rest by any stretch of the imagination there, Kev. First off, I appreciate you having me on, and secondly, yeah, it's been a wild ride trying to get moved up here from Texas and get settled in, but also get to learn the team. So I've been watching a lot of film going into practices, and then once practice started, it's really trying to take notes and gather as much information, talk to players, talk to coaches, talk to people around the building, just so that way, whenever the time comes to get on a microphone, I'm able to portray the best, most up to date info around this Ravens team to the very deserving Ravens fans out there. So it's been a lot of fun, man. It's like drinking from a fire hose. It is just information overload. Trying to keep it all straight is one thing, but man, it's really been a blessing, and it's been so much fun so far.
Yeah, and I guess being around the team a little bit, obviously being out there at training camp, obviously I think you have talked about your thoughts on Baltimore from the outside, but now being around the organization, being at the castle, watching these guys, and look, it's a new start for everybody, right? Like Jesse Minter is first-time head coach. You got new personnel and new coaching staff. What's the vibe been like for you at training camp watching these guys?
Yeah, it's hard for me to speak to the level of energy that this team has compared to what they had maybe in the John Harbaugh era, because I was never around John Harbaugh's practices and never in the building for his era in Baltimore. But I can certainly tell you that there is buy-in with Jesse Minter's squad. It feels like every time you turn around, somebody of a leadership caliber is talking about his impact and his influence on this roster, and the energy of the building and the buy-in from guys around the team. All of that to say that the practices compared to training camp practices that I've been to, I've been to Dallas's, I've been to Denver's, I've been to Los Angeles, both Rams and Chargers. I've been to New Orleans. I've been to all these different camps previously. The energy in this one is as much as I've ever seen, and it really has been fun to watch. A lot of it is based around the physicality. A lot of it's in the trenches. I mean, this is a defensive line that has a ton of talent, and an offensive line that's trying to prove themselves. And you can kind of see that tug of war back and forth so far. So a lot of the proving ground has been in the trenches, while the highlight reel plays have been out of Jacoby Lane, who's certainly been a star of camp, Zay Flowers, who's now the $140 million man. You've got Lamar doing his thing, and some of these tight ends starting to show out. Josh Cuevas had a really nice day on Wednesday, and Matthew Hibner's had a really good start to his rookie camp as well. So lots to take in. Like I said, that information overload, but also the energy has been overloading as well. Wednesday's practice was rainy. It was wet, but nobody seemed to care. It was a mindset, and it was a level of intensity that I'm honest, completely honest, I didn't really expect. I thought it was going to be, this is a throwaway day. It's going to be a glorified walkthrough. It was not. It was very to the point, still very productive, and they were able to get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm glad you mentioned the wide receivers, because that's where I wanted to go with this with you, because we can start with Zay, who did not practice on Tuesday for good reason, obviously, as he signed a mega extension like you talked about. But back on Wednesday, and I'm using your notes here as a little cheat sheet, Kyle, and I want to get your thoughts more in detail on them. But you said Zay was active in his first day back, couple grabs over the middle of the field, and some in space, some in coverage. I believe, was it 2 touchdowns he scored? 3?
Yeah.
Somewhere along, I think
at
maybe
least two that I saw. At least 2.
Yeah. So what did Zay look like in his first day back? And then I guess over the course of training camp, I mean, him stepping up, making some plays, how's he looked?
He's looked great. He looked like Zay, which is a good thing for this team that wants him to look like Zay and to continue to build off of back-to-back Pro Bowl seasons. But I think the big thing with Zay in practice is he's so elusive and he's so quick that you really don't get a good, I guess, just feel for how fun it is to watch him, because in practice he's running around, but they're not tackling, right? In the game, if he doesn't get brought to the ground, that's where he gets really exciting and really electrifying as a receiver. So you get to see bits and pieces of that, but they've used him a lot over the middle. They've used him kind of in these shallow crossers and just putting him in space, which is what you want. A lot of layers on this Declan Doyle offense so far is putting receivers kind of layered one on top of the other, not running the same route, but with distance in between them. So that way it provides a kerfuffle for the defense, and they've got to find a way to sift through it and to communicate. And Zay's kind of the ultimate weapon in order to do all of that. So we've seen that today. I thought was a great example, or a Wednesday, I should say, was a great example of that, was running over the middle. He had two defenders crashing down on it. Lamar put it on his belt line. He crashed underneath, caught the ball over the top, come the defenders very quickly after that. So he's able to kind of make the play exactly how it was intended. And then on a shallow crosser, Lamar hits him in stride, and then he's turning upfield, and he's past the pylon really before the defense could even adjust. So he looked just like he normally would. He continues to be as electrifying as ever. He didn't practice, of course, on Tuesday because Eric DeCosta said, let's get this thing across the finish line first before we get you back out there. But even in the rain, in his day after getting the big extension and $108 million guaranteed, Zay Flowers looked like the number one receiver on this roster. There really hasn't been a point where he hasn't looked like the one receiver, even with the highlights that some of the other guys have had.
Yeah, and mentioning too, he added about 8 pounds to try to run through some more tackles, which I thought was really interesting and really cool. He said he heard the noise about the east-west running, so trying to be a little maybe more physical running through those tackles this year. But it's really cool. Like, Zay wants to be in Baltimore. He made that clear even before the extension was signed. Obviously, was very grateful during his media availability. So seeing Zay kind of blossom and grow over these first 3 years, certainly well deserved for Zay on that front. But I mean, Kyle, Jacoby Lane has been the talk of not even Ravens training camp. He's been like the NFL's darling over these last couple of months. And look, deservedly so. He's making highlight catches. He seems to do something crazy every single day. I mean, apparently in practice on Wednesday, according to the people that were out there, I mean, he elevated over Marlon to snag a touchdown in the back of the end zone. I mean, what was that catch for you? And then, I mean, how has he looked? Because it feels like he's a guy that is full speed ahead right now at training camp.
Yeah, let me be very clear about the hype around Jacoby Lane, because every year it happens where there's this rookie wide receiver that makes a couple of flash plays, and then everybody gets excited saying, I need to draft him on my fantasy team, and he's going to be the number 2 or number 3 wide receiver, or maybe even the number 1, depending on what organization they're with. The thing that impresses me the most about Jacoby Lane has nothing to do with the highlights. It has everything to do with 2 things. The coachability that he's shown and the way that coaches have spoken about him, even in passing, even in off-the-record conversations, they continue to say that Jacoby Lane has been coachable. He continues to say, oh, I did something wrong. Declan Doyle talked about it today. I was actually kind of surprised that he brought it up. But he said there are times where he comes up to me and he says, hey, coach, I did that wrong. And Declan's like, don't beat yourself up about it. Get back in there and do it the right way. And certainly he's done that as time goes on. That's what's earning him these reps. That's what's earning him a chance to play alongside in team drills Rashod Bateman and Zay Flowers as the first team guys up across the front of the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's what they continue to do. The second thing that I like about it is that he just continues to be in the right place at the right time, and he does it with some high energy. If it's special teams, even there were a couple times on special teams reps where he was either a gunner or a protector, and I'm sitting there watching Jacoby Lane mostly to see how his effort is and how he takes to the special teams element and unit among all of this hype and all of this buy-in outside of the building. And he continues to attack those special teams reps with the same energy and the same concentration that he would on offense. And that impresses me for a rookie. Doesn't mean he's the best special teams player out there. There's other better special teams players, guys that are built for the position a little bit more. He's so long and lanky that he's built to be a catch radius caliber wide receiver. And then that's what he's shown with the highlights. So the highlights have been incredible. The catch that he made on Tuesday, where he's, I mean, full extension back to catch the football. Yeah. And I'm probably about 10, 15 feet away, and I had to pick my jaw up off of the ground and dust a little grass off of it on the way, because it was one of the best catches in the game, out of the game, that I've ever seen. And that was the best catch he's made, but he's continuously made incredible plays. Like you said, elevating. His catch radius is incredible. And there was even a practice last week where he elevated above double coverage in the middle of the hash marks and grabbed the football. A couple plays later, they tried it again, and Lamar, I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but I like to think that it is, and this mostly is a credit to what I believe Lamar is capable of, but he threw it a little bit higher, not a lot higher, just a little bit higher, and I thought it was a test. I completely thought it was a deliberate delivery to get it a little higher to see if Jacoby could go get that one. That one a little off his hands, and it fell incomplete. May have just been a missed throw, maybe not, but at that point in time, I looked at it as Lamar is testing a young wide receiver who has high-flying ability, and they wanted to see how far he could go. And they're going to continue to test that type of stuff as training camp goes on.
Yeah, and that's what training camp is for. It's about experimenting, figure out, hey, how high can I throw this football for you so that you can come down with it. You don't want to do that in week 5 when it matters. Like, you want to do it now as you figure it out. So, I mean, I think it's really important for the chemistry to continue for those guys. And yeah, I mean, Jacoby's showing Lamar, hey, you can trust me to come down with this football. I mean, what a welcome to the NFL when it comes to going up against a secondary that does include Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins and Kyle Hamilton and all these guys. So offense gets the defense better. Defense gets the offense better. I absolutely love that. Coming up, though, we'll be talking more about Kyle's observations, including a moment from training camp that Kyle singled out, and I want to talk about it because I think it's really important. You might know what I'm talking about already, so be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming up here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Gametime. There are more live events than ever worth seeing right now. Games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals. The hard part usually isn't deciding what you want to attend. It's actually getting the tickets. Between long wait times, confusing checkout processes, and surprise fees, buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it should. That's why so many fans are turning to Gametime. The app is built to make buying tickets simple with upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, and exclusive savings opportunities to help you get to the events you want without the usual hassle. And honestly, I want to know exactly what my view will look like and exactly what I'm paying. Gametime helps me know those two things ahead of time. I can buy tickets with a lot more confidence. If the Ravens make the Super Bowl, that is a bucket list event. So I'm immediately hopping on Gametime if that opportunity came up. The guests we're going to buy tickets to every type of event with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Kyle Youmans still here with you talking Ravens football. Kyle, let's talk about this moment you singled out. You made it a point to make a whole separate post about it. And I think I'm glad you did, because it's an important thing when it comes to not just the football aspect and the plays that are being made and the highlight tape, but talk about leadership, right? And I think it's a big thing in Baltimore. It has been for a while, but you noted that one moment from Wednesday's practice was on the offensive line when Ronnie Stanley was working one-on-one off to the side with Carson Vincent. And you said here, no coaches, no script, and the two of them sharpening hand placement and footwork with Vincent there. So can you kind of describe what you saw during that kind of leadership that Ronnie was taking there, the coachable, teachable moments there, and why it is so important for you in the grand scheme of things for Baltimore?
Yeah, it is important because you need veteran leadership, and especially from a guy like Ronnie Stanley, who's been now the most tenured player on the Ravens roster. For him to step off to the side and coach a second-year player that technically is either his replacement or his future replacement, you know, at some point in time, they will try and occupy the same spot on the depth chart. They're both left tackles. They're both slated to be one and the same. And for Ronnie Stanley to take time, it was in a down portion of practice. I believe it was special teams that was happening. I really don't remember because I was paying attention to Ronnie Stanley and Carson Vincent. But I looked over to my right, and they're at the end of the end zone, just past the back line, and they're over by the fencing that's over the pond in the back of the Ravens facility. And it's just them two, and they're just working on hand placement. They're right, left, and a lot of it was timing with his feet. They were trying to tie the hands to the feet because Ronnie Stanley would kind of bluff for a second, and then he would kind of fall forward, and that was simulating an edge rusher attacking and at certain times. And then Carson Vincent would have to get back into his set in order to tie the hands to the feet. And there was a lot of conversating in between. They both had their helmets on, but you could tell that they were communicating, and there was a back and forth, and there was a teaching element to the whole thing. And like I said, I looked around, there was no offensive line coach. There was no, of course, it wasn't a part of the practice script itself. And I felt like that was important to note, because this is Ronnie Stanley just being a leader and seeing something that needed to be fixed. Or on the contrary, it's Carson Vincent as a second-year player looking at the veteran saying, hey, I need a little bit of tip here. So either way it goes, it's good for culture. Either way it goes, it shows a level of connectivity. It shows a level of common goal. And these guys are trying to be great at what they're doing. And that always sticks out to me. I try and point out things like that in the middle of training camp, because it's not going to show up on a highlight reel. It's not going to show up on the cinematic recap as the team posts on YouTube or on X or wherever they put all their cool videos. But that is the type of stuff that's going to win you football games in the deepest, darkest times of the season. Because if it's not Ronnie Stanley, it's Carson Vincent, and I think Stanley understands it, and so does Vincent.
Yeah, it's the present and the future. And, when you have leaders who are willing to go that extra mile, I mean, it speaks a lot to your culture. And I think it also just, speaks to the level that everybody wants these guys to be better. Because if something happens, and of course, knock on wood, nothing does happen, but of course it's football, and unfortunately injuries are a part of the game. You feel more confident and prepared knowing that Carson Vincent is working with somebody like a Ronnie Stanley, and that next man up mentality. I mean, he's learning from Ronnie, who maybe it would be him, or maybe it would be Rosengarten, whoever it is. But Carson Vincent's a really, really good young player with a lot of potential, and to see him working with those leaders and hearing that is really good.
To that point, the way that Vincent's played this training camp, I had a conversation with a staff member today about Vincent, actually, and he's put on good weight. He looks good. He looks the part. He looks like a tackle in the NFL. Remember, he's coming out of Alabama A&M. It wasn't like he was playing nothing against Alabama A&M, but it wasn't SEC football. It wasn't Big Ten football, where a lot of these offensive linemen that have success in the league are coming from. He's coming from a smaller school and a smaller program with lesser resources, but he's taken advantage of his NFL offseason. He looks the part. He's been able to bulk up a little bit, and he's had some really good reps. Speaking of defensive linemen out of the SEC, it was him versus Zion Young, the Missouri rookie, in training camp, one-on-ones at the end of practice on, I believe it was Tuesday, and Carson Vincent won that battle, so much so that Zion got a little frustrated and kind of swiped at him a little bit at the end of the rep. And so the teaching element that's in this whole process wasn't just because Carson Vincent's been bad or he hasn't been performing. It was just another level of detail that they're trying to elevate to, because he's actually been pretty good in training camp from what I've seen. And if that's a second-year player with a lot of high ceiling, I would love to see what else he's got under his belt as time goes on.
Yeah, I'm super excited for him. The Ravens clearly like him a lot, and the potential is there. So Vincent could be a factor in the Ravens' future. And look, if he's learning from Ronnie Stanley, he is learning from a really, really solid vet. But speaking of leadership, Kyle, on the defensive side of the ball, look, Roquan Smith has been a leader on that unit ever since being traded over from the Chicago Bears. Roquan had a bit of a down year last year, all things considered, but seems like this offseason he did a lot, and he's coming to training camp, and he's been one of the guys. And even like me talking to former Ravens receiver Qadri Ismail, who's out there at training camp, I mean, he's made it a point almost every time he and I talk to mention how good Roquan Smith looks. And, not just from like a physicality perspective and just how he's looked from one year to the other, but, making plays as well. I think on Wednesday, he had an interception of Lamar early, I think, if I'm reading it right. And he's somebody that, you noted in your notes as well on that, where he had a nice interception, you said, after baiting the throw. So what has he looked like to you? And, what in particular about that play maybe impressed you?
Yeah, it's interesting because Roquan hasn't necessarily been leading the headlines, but he probably should be. I mean, this is a all-pro caliber linebacker where you never have to worry about him being in the right place at the right time. Even in a new system, he's still going to be in the right place at the right time. He showed that when he went from Chicago to Baltimore, and he ended up having success in a new system and with a new defensive coordinator. So you bring him to the table. And really the only thing you're worried about is maybe if he's showing up in shape and if he's able to stay healthy. And both of those things, at least to this point in time, check those boxes. He looks healthy. He looks great. And he looks like he's in better shape than he was last year. Again, I never got to see him in person, but I've watched Roquan for years just as a fan of good defense. And he's one of the best linebackers in football. So when you try and turn on teach tape for linebackers, it's Roquan Smith. And I think we're getting back to that. I think we're getting back to him being the standard for linebackers, not only on this team, but in the NFL. And he's always going to give you that mental aspect of it, which benefits guys around him like Trenton Simpson, and the guys that are behind him on the depth chart. I know Teddy Buchanan is still out, but when he comes back, he's going to benefit from that type of stuff too as a young linebacker in this league. So to have Roquan healthy, to have him still looking the part, where he did have a down year last year, but he still had 130 tackles and he still played the majority of the snaps on the defensive side for this Ravens team. So I think only the sky is the limit for a guy like Roquan in this system with that type of athleticism, and the fact that he's got his body right going into the year is just only the cherry on top.
Yeah, I mean, Roquan is a huge piece of what they do. We all know that. And, he's the guy in the middle of the huddle before the game. He's firing these guys up, but he does it on the field too. I mean, when he is at his best, flying around to the football, making plays, bringing that intensity, and that rubs off on everybody who is out there and gives them a little boost as well. So to hear Roquan is having the start to training camp that he has been a really refreshing thing here in Baltimore, because we all know the player that Roquan Smith can be when he is fully on. Look, it's going to be an awesome season, a fun year, and I'm excited to have you behind the mic for this team, Kyle. So thank you so much for coming on, talking football with me, talking Ravens with me. Before I get you out of here, tell people where they can find you and what you're working on, obviously, and how people can connect with you.
Yeah, you can first hear me on the Lounge podcast this week. Actually, I'm going to hop on and fill in for Ryan Mink. So we're going to talk a little training camp, kind of some of the stuff that we talked about today. But yeah, I'll be on the Lounge with Garrett Downing there, and then after that, it's really preseason week 1 against Philadelphia on the WBAL broadcast, tape delay on NFL Network, I believe, a little bit later on in the week. And so you can hear our broadcast on there against the Eagles, 7 p.m. start time from M&T Bank Stadium. Excited for that. Until then, you can follow some of my notes. I'm not a weatherman, but it's Kyle_Youmans on Twitter. So you go with the @ first and then Kyle_Youmans. I've got the Ravens little logo on there too now. Yeah. So yeah, give me a follow. I'm excited to interact with Ravens fans. I try to interact on there as much as I can, and try and give some really good notes too as I go along. I'm copying my notes down as practice comes to the end. So excited to be a part of this organization, to be a part of this fan base. It's going to be an incredible year, and I can't wait to get started.
Kyle is so awesome. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking with him. And there's actually another part of the conversation that I will be airing later that is really great as well. So be sure you check out Kyle wherever he is. You'll be hearing a lot of them here for the Baltimore Ravens this season and in the future. The links to all of where Kyle is will be in the description down below. But that's all I have for you today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. On the right side, like and subscribe button in video form, and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content coming up back here for the 6 p.m. edition of the show. Then back here tomorrow morning for the 6 a.m. edition of the show. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll stay right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.